Today I'm going to set out on a journey into my indie single shadows in order to create my perfect purple palette. This time of year especially, we're being bombarded by brands trying to sell us stuff, and sometimes the best defense is to get creative with the things that you already own and see them in another light. This is also a continuation of a series that I've been doing very slowly on my channel over the past year or so. I've made my perfect orange palette, yellow palette, red palette, pink palette. That might be it. So today is number 5, my purple palette. So we're going to switch over to my hands and I'll chronicle with you all of my thoughts going into the palette, making the palette, and we'll see how it turns out. So let's switch over and get into it. First of all, I'm trying out some nail polishes for an upcoming video. I figured we're talking purple palette today. I'll do some purple polishes. So that's why you might notice at some point that this hand looks really good and this hand doesn't look so good. I was like, lucky me that I put the bad one on like the finger I'm most likely going to be swatching on. Now that that's out of the way, purple palette. What is a purple? Okay, I think we all know what a purple is, but I feel like my biggest obstacle that I'm going to be coming up against in constructing this palette is that often purple palettes combine cool tone purples and warm tone purples, and I'm not really so into that, but both are valid purples. So at this point, I'm not sure how we're going to manage that, and that's going to be a big question I'll be seeking to answer, or at least like come to a conclusion about in making this palette. I'm pretty sure I usually make the palettes in here, so I cleared this out. I guess we'll stick with the same theme of like the past colorful palettes, sorry my cat is eating, of doing 15 shadows, like 3 rows of 5. And I guess we'll just start going around and pulling some shades out, seeing what happens. I don't know. In no particular order. Here's this palette. Okay, this has Menagerie and Adept and ColourPop. Another thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that if it's entirely purple, if like all of the mattes are also purple, that makes it a less usable palette for me. I love having a crease that's a little bit more neutral to have the option of a more subtle look and not having to do like a lavender crease. So a lot of my normal mattes are tied up in my perfect neutral palette right now, but I think I want to start by pulling out a couple of these ColourPop ones. I'm thinking maybe these two. And this could, you know, change or whatever as we go on. Maybe even this shade too. This is an old depotted shade that I kept around for years because I've always liked the color of. But every time I go to declutter, I'm like, I literally never use this because it's just sitting in the corner of a palette and I never think to use it. I don't know. Who knows if I will use it, but that's an option. And I guess in the spirit of pulling all the purples out, I'm just going to pull purples out. I'll probably do that until it becomes way too many purples and then I have to come up with a different plan. I'm tempted by this one also. I do have a little vision in the back of my mind that I didn't think would come up so soon, but I remember when Urban Decay came out with their Ultraviolet palette, I'm pretty sure that one had like a light shimmery teal in that, and I thought it was a really interesting little accent. And this minty one, I feel like that kind of does it, and maybe I would even include a shimmer that either I could layer with this or would also just kind of like go with it also. That's a thought. Because as I've been alluding to, or straight out saying, I'm not seeking to make a palette that is 15 purple shadows. I'm looking to make a palette that can be called a purple palette, but is also useful for me and exciting to me. Electrum. In this palette, I guess I'm going to pull out this one. I think this is Tease. Yeah, this is Tease from Shine by SD. That's not like a straight up purple, but I do think of it as kind of like the purple one of their Sparkle Light shades. So I'm going to pull that out. There's also some newer Cleona shades in here. This one, I remember I did not like it enough to want to pull it out. I kind of do want to pull out this pink. Something about the tone, I feel like it would tie into like a warmer purple segment or palette, kind of like this top, which is like a warmer purple. Here is my perfect neutral palette that I made earlier this month. I love this and I don't want to touch it. It has Lunar Lavender in it, but I'm going to let Lunar Lavender live her best life in here because, yeah, I don't want to start pulling this apart. Okay, we have some purples in this one. There's this lavender from Dandelion's Cosmetics. I remember not being obsessed with the formula, but we'll stick it in for now. And then also there's this dark purple from Glaminatrix, which is a shade that I don't really have like an itch to reach for, but I can't imagine a purple palette without this like deep purple in it. Couple purples up top, I'll stick in also for now. And then there's this flaky from Copacetic. I had very mixed feelings about these Copacetic flakies, but I'm pretty sure this minty one was one that I liked, and the tone of it would kind of go with my minty fantasy, so I'm going to stick that one in for now, too. ColourPop mattes. There's nothing like true purple in here, but I might stick in the light pink. I don't mind like a little toe off the pink end. And also I just feel like light pink and purple just kind of go seamlessly together. Here are my shades from Divina. And I see a couple purples that I definitely want to consider because I absolutely love them, but I don't know how well they're going to play with others. And that's Frozen Waves and Nocturne Ash. Nocturne Ash, I never want to declare it either a pink or a purple. I feel like it lives exactly in between for me. But, I mean, you know, it's a purple palette, you know? And there's pinks in it anyway. And then Frozen Waves is interesting because like it is like purple, but it's also kind of berry and it has this really strong teal shift to it. But maybe that would even tie in with the fact that we're putting in this like mintiness. So we'll consider that. There's a couple other randoms over here, but I'm feeling a little bit less like throw them all in. Okay, we could put Fuchsia AF in from Luxie. That's acceptable. I'll put this deep brown in too. I don't know if this is going to stay, but I'll put that in for now. This is the Fantasia palette from Divina, and it does have a lavender matte. It has this shade that's kind of purpley, this shade that's kind of purpley. Okay, I'm tempted by the light one. I feel like I might not have like enough light shades, so that's kind of perfect. Speaking of light shades, this is my Inner Corner palette, and then whatever else also. And of course, UV has to go in. This is like an interesting Inner Corner shade because it's not really sparkly, but it's very glowy. But I just don't think I could have a purple palette without it, you know? I pulled out the Plain Jane palette. I might include this purple. I have like ACD5 pulled out already, which is like a little bit less of a true purple. Maybe this would do better in here. This is kind of a motley assortment of shades in here. I think I could leave that palette out of this. Oh, so this is the palette that's mostly my Shine by SD, but it's also like whatever else I've stuck in recently. I see Cleona Noble, which I've worn a bunch recently and I've been absolutely loving. So that's going in. Glam Rush. I have forgotten all about Glam Rush until I just looked for purples and spotted it. This one's going to go in. And then I have these two that are part of the collab with Bizarre Volta and M. Jones 5018. This one's a little bit more like pinky purple. This one's a little bit more true purple. I'm going to go with the true purple for now. This is the shade Queen of Chaos. And then what's this one? Flirtatious. I have forgotten all about this shade too. All right, I'll stick it in. And then this is mostly Pretties for Your Face shades, but with a couple other little random things thrown in there. I'm going to pull out Glacier. This is in collaboration with Smithy Sony. This was like the first Mega Chrome they came out with, and it's beautiful. And I don't know if I'm going to keep in this shade because it's kind of like dark and rich, but I did really enjoy this purple from Divina. This is Midnight Ritual that just came out in October. This palette is getting quite overstuffed. I want to say we're almost done looking, but I have like the 3 biggest palettes left to open up. Okay. This is Terra Moons and a bunch of random stuff. I really need to just organize these shadows. It's absolutely out of control. I see Meraki from Divina, which is like a mauve color, but I'm curious to see if that has a place. We also have Hydra from Terra Moons. This is a really pretty shade. Oh, and I see a couple Electrum ones. You know, I feel like I'm just still intimidated by Electrum, and I feel like those shades are going to be too much. And I feel like both of those colors are already kind of covered by what we've already pulled out, so I'm going to leave those out of here. In here, this is the Luxie palette. What are you? Once Upon a Time. This is a really pretty purple. I'm going to see if this has a spot. And same for Painted Lady. Okay, finally, last palette. This is Cleona, Touch of Glam, Glaminatrix, and some Luxie. I'm going to pull out this shade from Touch of Glam. This is Masquerade Hollow. I remember liking this, but I don't think I've worn it since I got these Touch of Glam shadows. This lid has lost the will to live. And then from Cleona, I'm just going to grab out Tapestry. It's kind of lighter and warm. And Ascension. This one's a little bit newer. I think I got this one over the summer. And this is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I think I definitely can make a spot for this. Okay, let's use the top of that palette because this palette can no longer hang. This looks like a nice assortment of shadows to choose from. It also looks very redundant. And I'm trying to think about how to kind of break them up to better decide what's like already represented or not. Let me start by pulling out the mattes. Okay, I pulled out the mattes and I also pulled out those two mint ones that are kind of doing their own thing. Let me move the lightest ones. Then I have a couple that are like a true warm purple. Yeah, let me just keep going. Okay, so these are ones that are mostly a little bit more warm. These ones are a little bit more cool. These ones are kind of doing their own thing. Like, they're here for a reason, but they might lean a little bit more pink or a little bit more neutral. So I think this might be enough organization to try to start shaping out the palette a little bit. So I'm feeling pretty good about the mint element, and I think I'm going to stick these in the middle. Maybe like that. And then these two lighter ones, I think I'll include both of those. So we have UV right there. And then this is Frostbane. I wonder if I could try to keep the warm purples to this side, then put some of the more cool purples on this side. And that separation might please me. Okay, of these like really true purples, I think I'm gonna go with Flirtatious from Shine by SD. I'm just kind of excited to remember that it exists again. So I'm going to veto this Adept one and this Menagerie one. And because I'm having a hard time with the warm purples, I'm kind of like looking at the mattes too, because I'm like, I could map it out with the mattes and then fill in the empty spaces. But I'm confused at the mattes. Maybe just because I started with some shades that are like less purple, but I just feel like if I put in some of the neutrals over here, then the whole top row is going to look very unpurple. Like maybe that is a better spot for it. That is a nice shade. It's much lighter, more neutral. Okay, I don't know when my camera cut off recording. I stuck in a bunch of shades here. There are 15 shades in this now, but I'm not feeling like it's looking like a purple palette. I want these mints to really stand out, and I feel like these cool purples read as a purple palette, and the warm purples really don't. So I'm feeling like, even though I love these warm purples, maybe I need it to be more of like, yeah, a one shade accent, and really lean on the cool purples to get it to look like a purple palette. So let me move some of these warm purples out of the way because I have too many as is. And I'm going to move some of the other ones that are definitely no's also, like this Adept one, Hydra from Terra Moons. I just need things that look distinctly purple. Frozen Waves, Keys from Shine by SD. These do not read as purple enough. And I'm going to take out these shades so I can kind of mess around with it a little bit easier. I think it's possible that, like, maybe I don't need a total overhaul, but maybe it's something to do with the arrangement also. That maybe I need to not have it so separated, or maybe, like, the top row was too neutral and that kind of tricks the eye into thinking it's more of a neutral palette. Or not even neutral, but just, like, not purple. Okay, let's talk options. I definitely want these first two in there. I just feel like I need two options for like a light shimmer inner corner. And I'm trying to think about these mints that maybe like this spot isn't the place for them to be. That part of me feels like I could, put them down lower. That could help. Or I think it's just the one in that Urban Decay palette that I'm thinking of, but I think it's at the start of the palette, and I wonder if I, like, separate them on the ends so, like, the whole interior is purple, if that would be better. So it's not, like, a mass of mint. Yeah, I could kind of see the vision for that. And maybe I also need something else distinctly purple up there. I'm thinking one of these mattes. Is this one too light? That might be too light. Okay, now we're talking. I have this Touch of Glam holographic shade, and I would like to include it because I would like to use it more. The Adept there, this lavender matte, that would be pretty in the center. I'm always gravitating towards like a gradient from light in the top left corner to darkest in the bottom right corner. But I'm like looking at this, I'm like, this is half the palette already and there's nothing dark. Like, does it need to be more interspersed? Does that help? That actually might help. Or it could be like Glacier in the center. Yeah, that looks pretty purple right now. I am a little torn because it's supposed to be my perfect purple palette. And I feel like this right now is not my perfect purple palette. I don't want to be dictated by how it looks in the pan, but like I want both. I want it to be the most usable palette with my favorite shades, and I also want it to look good in the pan. And I just feel like I can't have it both ways this time. Because even like, if I do keep these 10, I'm like, what are the shades that I personally want most in the rest of this palette? And I would say it's Nocturne Ash, it's Noble, and then if I'm having those two, I would like Flirtatious to be like a deeper, warm purple. And then I absolutely need a transition color. I'm like, does that just ruin it? And what else? I think if it was up to me, I want this Cleona one also because I want to use that. Oh, is this starting to look kind of good though? Because actually, despite my whining, I feel like these are a good assortment of shades. I'm still getting my mint, I'm still getting my transition and my two inner corners. I'm getting a couple mattes, and I am excited about all these shimmers. It would have been nice to have like Frozen Waves in there, for example, or like this Shine by SD one, but that would also mean booting out some of the ones that are in here, and I do want these shimmers in here. I think I just like too many purples. Okay, so I'm going to declare that these are the shades, but I'm going to give it one more chance for arrangement. I say one more chance. It could be more than one more chance. I don't know. As I assemble it into the palette. For argument's sake, what if the mints were on the middle row and not on the top row? What then? Because I wonder if then I could have my transition shade. Because I guess my main goal for changing the way that the palette's arranged right now is I would rather have this transition shade on the top. That's a pretty small nitpick. And to separate the mattes. That's the thing too. It was like 5 mattes touching each other, and I would rather not. My silly little camera's been glitching more than usual recently, and every time it does, I lose the footage from that clip. So I don't know at what point it stopped recording. I wasn't even talking, I was just moving around the shades. But I think this is my perfect purple palette. I know I was unsure for a minute there, and sometimes you just have to push through the muddy trail to get to the beautiful veranda on the other side. Am I using all those words correctly? Okay, so this is what it looks like. And I think this is it. If I had to make a complaint, my only complaint would be having two square pans next to each other. But if that's my biggest issue, then I don't really have any issues. I feel like I have the perfect, concise mattes for this. I have my transition. Realistically, all I need is one shade to use my transition, and that's fine. I have two options for lavender mattes to use as accents or for the lower lash line. I have this bright contrasting matte to spice things up, and I have this deep purple if I want to add some depth to the looks. Two inner corner shades. I have this one bold minty shade. I have three that are a little bit more warm. I have this one that's like a good, beautiful, sheer wet look that I feel like works for a more simple look. And then these three beautiful shades in the center that I'm excited to use. You know how sometimes when you're like putting on a makeup look, you have to like push through that like ugly period of making the look where you're like, maybe I should wipe it off. This is looking horrible. But then you push through and it turns out looking good. Da-da! That's what this palette was for me. And I'm going to swatch it out. I'm really excited for that. Menagerie Jellyfish, Copacetic Flora, Divina Nocturne Ash, Cleona UV. Touch of Glam Masquerade Hollow, Shine by SD Flirtatious, Divina Frostbane, Cleona Ascension. Glaminatrix Burlesque, Colourpop Labyrinth, Pretties for Your Face Glacier, Cleona Noble. Dandelions Co. Lila, Menagerie Tide Pool, Adept Plain Jane palette. You know, I do feel like the swatches look a little all over the place because there's a lot of that like really cool purple and really warm purple thing going on that I was warning about. But I feel like because to me, it doesn't look that like crazy in the palette. Like I feel like I organize it in a way that is pleasing to my brain. So I still feel kind of like victorious. I also think that when I use this, I'm not going to be constructing like really complicated looks, probably, because most of the time I don't anyway. But there's a lot of like good, simple combinations of like 3 or 4 shadows or 2 or 3 shadows that I think will look really, really beautiful. So let's switch back over to my face and talk some final thoughts. And that is my perfect purple palette. Let me zoom you in and I'll show you what I have on my eyes. I'm actually surprised with myself that I didn't use the mints in this look. I feel like I've done in a couple of videos recently a look using like mints and purples. I don't know. Coincidence? I don't know. I didn't strictly ban myself from doing that today, but I kind of just naturally gravitated into something different. I started with Colourpop Labyrinth in my crease, and it really is such a nice crease shade. You can see it's not like fully outlining the look or anything, but I just wanted something kind of like pinky and more warm comparatively to be high in my crease. And I really like the effect of it. I do have a dry spot on my crease in that eye. Ignore that. And then I went in with a bunch of shades, and I'm not sure if I remember the exact order, but I will try. I went in with Masquerade Hollow from Touch of Glam on my lid. You could see how pretty it is, and I've been dying to use that shade. And then I went in with Glaminatrix Burlesque for like this outer V section. This shade is very powdery and also very dark, which is a combination that I'm not too fond of. I did have to like do some wiping off on my cheeks after. I went over that with Menagerie Jellyfish because I wanted to brighten it up a little bit. And then I also went over it with a little bit of Pretties for Your Face and Smithy Sony Glacier. And then I touched up Masquerade Hollow. And then I went in with Dandelions Cosmetics Lila. It's really not even that noticeable that I went in with that lavender on like the inner swoosh there, but I feel like it added something to the look that wasn't like tangible. Like it added some oomph. It made the look a little bit better. I could see as I was putting it on in a way that like you can't even tell that it's there. I don't know what sort of synergistic magic that was, but I'm digging it. For my lower lash line, I just used more Lila, Jellyfish, and Burlesque very carefully. And then my inner corner, I used Divina Frostbane. I feel like I can be kind of picky with my purple looks, and historically, if I kind of like try to do too much with a purple look, it makes me like it less, I found. But I really like this look. And also I surprised myself with the fact that I used all of the mattes in here other than this like teal one, because like the different steps of purple were kind of necessary to create like depth and to kind of like meld things together for this look. I'm excited to play with this more. You know, I'm definitely excited to go in with these mints, and I'm excited to use this Cleona one. And of course shadows like Nocturne Ash and Noble, which I have used more recently, but I love them. I can't get enough of them, and I'm going to be using them very soon. Let me know what shades would be in your perfect purple palette, if there was any like glaring omissions, any shadows that I completely ignored in my collection and forgot about, or chose not to use, or maybe even included. Or maybe even I don't have. That's possible too. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm trying to post every day in December, so if you like a lot of December content, here's the place to be. Either way though, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you very soon. Bye!